All right, I think we're on. Let me double check here on my iPad. Let's see. There we are. Hi guys. Is anybody out there? I just have my computer set up over here, so I'm just going back and forth, making sure everything is good. How's everybody doing? Let's see. I see it on the iPad. I have the comments up there so that I can make sure I don't miss anything. Let's see. I think it's good, but if you want to check it out, that's always a good thing. Oh, I see a couple people on there. Hi guys, how are you today? Hi Sandra. Oh, awesome, awesome. Okay, good, thank you. All right, just want to make sure, can you guys hear me okay? Everything look good? My connection looks pretty good right now, so hopefully that will hold out. Hey Sharon. How are you guys doing today? Write in the comments where you're watching from so we can get to know each other. And let me know if you're going to be following along or if you're going to be watching and making the project later. It's always fun to see if anybody's going to make our project for the day. Awesome. Sharon says thumbs up. Thank you. All right. Don't forget to share this live too, guys. Share it with all your sugar friends. We're going to have a really fun project today of the bubble wand. I have that back here. I'll show you in just a second. All right, great. We got a bunch of people on now. We'll just wait a couple minutes, give it 1 or 2 minutes before we start. Make sure everybody is on to catch the beginning. Hi, Harry. How you doing? All right. I have a slight lag here, so I'm just waiting to see if there's any questions or anything. If you guys have questions about the supply list, I do have the supply list for this project. And we have the accessory kit too, but you can always just use what you have. Yay, Sharon is in Las Vegas and she will be making it right along with me. I love that. Can't wait to see pictures. All right, fantastic. Hi, Maria. Maria's in Houston. Davinia's here. Hi. Awesome. Yay, Pat Ashley says her package arrived and she can't wait to try. I am so excited to see what you make. I know it's going to be incredible. Hey, Patricia, how are you? All right, this is awesome, guys. I'm so excited. I'm going to show you guys today's project while we wait for everybody to jump on. Here is our bubble wand sculpture. So it's kind of hard to see on not a white background, but it has that true holographic sort of pattern to it underneath, which I'm going to show you how to get, and it's all transparent, which is super fun too, so it gives it that realistic look. We're going to be using our new bubble wand mold and making our blown bubbles. So I've done a couple demos on bubbles, and I do have a YouTube video on it too, but I thought today I would focus a lot. I'm going to give you, all the info for making the bubbles, but I thought I'd focus on little bubbles, because everybody always asks me how you get those itty bitty little bubbles. So I thought that I would kind of focus in on that, but I'll be showing you all about how to make any size of bubble today. And then we got a couple exciting announcements, so make sure that you watch till the end because I have some really, really fun things that I want to share with you guys. Let's see, just looking through the comments. Hey Heather, how are you today? All right, so we'll go ahead and get started here in just a second. Does everything look good? All right. Oh yeah, I have a new addition to my backdrop. If you guys couldn't see over here, I'll bring her up. If you guys saw, Sachiko Winville did a demo for our Simi Cakes page and torch team, and she made me out of sugar paste. Isn't that incredible? Holding my little torch, wearing my torch team wristbands and everything. Isn't that amazing? What do you guys think? She also made mom and dad make sure that you go back and watch her video because she has these new line that we are partnering with her to create for the little glass molds. You can also make bottles out of them. She has sunglasses, little kitties, a whole bunch of really fun mini stuff. So make sure you go back and watch her demo. It is still on the Simi Cakes page and the torch team, but I thought I'd have little mini Sid hang out back there with me for the live today. It was just incredible. I know, Patricia, even the hair, I was just blown away. I wish my hair looked that good every day. All right. Fantastic. I'm just going to move a cord over a little bit here so I can see you guys' comments a little bit better. I'm going to make sure my Isomalt is melting, so if you're going to be playing along today, you can get preheating your Isomalt for 30 seconds and then 15-second intervals. So the Isomalt, of course, that we're using today is my Simi pre-cooked tiles, so it's all ready to use. You don't have to worry about temperatures or recipes or anything like that. All you have to do is melt it down in the microwave for 30 seconds and then 15-second intervals. I do like to bring it to a boil, and that's just going to boil all of the air out, so I bring it to a nice rolling boil, and then you'll see that I'll let it settle before I actually use it. So you don't want to use it while it's actively boiling and bubbling. You want to let it settle at room temperature. Alright, so I'm just melting that down. If you got the accessory kit, you got clear, but we're going to be coloring it today as well as using the clear for our different elements, so just so that you guys can see a little bit of different techniques, but we'll start out just melting all of the clear in our bowl, or as much as you can, since we will be sectioning this. And I'll be using an extra bowl as well to section to color some of it white for the wand.
I totally can see this like pouring down the side of a cake, like a couple tears.
Yeah, oh, that would be so cool for a really fun, like, summery cake with the bubble drips going down. Yeah, I'll show you guys how you can bend it and shape it too with the design in it. That was a really good idea. All right, okay, so we'll go ahead and get started now. I'm going to tilt my camera down, but I'm super excited for you guys to be here. Thank you so much for being here. It's going to be a really, really fun demo. Again, for anybody who's just jumping on, this is what we're going to make today. I'm going to tilt my camera down so you can see it flat because it's a little bit easier to see. So let me set it down here. That way you can see it on a white background. There we go. So you can really see the pattern of the holographic print in the background here when it's up against a nice white background, because it is see-through, which is really fun. So it gives it that super duper realistic look to it of the hologram print. So I'm going to show you how I achieve that look. And if you guys have any questions, you know that you can write in the comments and I will be happy to answer anything. Or if you're watching the replay, you know, you can always message me here on Facebook or send me an email or an Instagram message as well, and I'll be happy to answer any Isomalt questions you have. Okay, so put that back off to the side. Like I said, I melted my Isomalt for about 30 seconds and then 15-second intervals, and I want to bring it to a nice boil. It's not quite there, so I'm going to give it another 30 seconds. What we're going to be pouring on is a Simi Isomalt transfer sheet. So if you got the accessory kit for this project, you will have gotten the transfer sheet halves, and you get a couple of them, so you have a couple different pieces that you can make just for practice. We also have this in a full sheet available on our website too, but basically if you haven't used our Isomalt transfer sheets before, they're a type of icing paper, but they're not like regular icing sheets. They're very, very thin. They would actually scratch off with your finger. They don't come off the plastic backing until they've transferred. So what we're going to do is, you can see they're already pretty translucent since they're so thin, but they're going to become even more translucent when you pour the Isomalt on. So I'm just going to pour the Isomalt right onto the surface. I'm going to let it cool, and then the plastic backing will peel away and it will leave the design behind, but it makes the colors really vibrant and vivid, and it's going to give us this really cool like oil slick sort of look. So you can also airbrush or paint on top of the Isomalt piece afterwards to like change the tint of it or anything like that, which is really neat. So if you're following along with this, or if you're using the Isomalt transfer sheets in another pattern, because you can do this with any kind of pattern, basically you just want to make sure you're pouring on the matte side. So there's a side here you can see is very matte, and then there's a side that's very shiny. That shiny side is the plastic backing, so if you pour on that, you're just going to get a beautiful clear puddle, but we want that design to transfer in, so we're going to make sure that we pour it right onto the dull side, not the shiny side. Now you don't have to set this onto anything to pour it, since it is on the plastic backing, but I like to set it on my non-stick Teflon mat here, just because if I do overflow any, the Isomalt won't stick to these, and also it allows me to move it around a little bit as since I'm working in one spot, so you guys can see, so I can move things in and out of the camera shot. So I'm just going to set it right onto there, and we'll look and see how my Isomalt is doing. Perfect. So while I was talking, it did kind of settle. So you can see it is nice and melted, but there aren't any bubbles in it, except for the one stuck to the bowl, but we're not going to worry about that. So again, you just bring your Isomalt to a boil, and then you let it sit for a minute or two at room temperature, or in this case, it just did it in the microwave since I was talking, until it comes to a nice flat liquid. So you don't want to pour it while it's actively boiling and bubbling, because then all those bubbles will be transferred into your piece, and it can, you know, obviously get bubbles in the piece. And if you're going for a really clear look, you don't want to do that. Now also with the transfer sheets, you don't want to pour it too hot either, because you don't want it to break up the paper or cause it to rise or anything from hot air. So you really want to make sure that this is nice and thick before you pour it out. You still want it very easily pourable, you just don't want it to be, you know, super duper hot. Okay, so we are going to be using this mold in a couple minutes, but I want to use it right now just for sizing. So how I have my bubble wand kind of sitting on top of my puddle, I'm just going to use this and keep it off to the side here so I can look at it. But it's going to span pretty much this whole sheet. I'm not going to use any sort of form. If you wanted an exact shape, you can take a greased metal cookie cutter. So just grease it with a little bit of Pam, and you could set it down on top and pour into that. You can also use one of our flex form molds, our flexible silicone strips, to shape into an exact shape so that you can just fill it up and not have to worry about it taking its own shape. But because I want this to look a little bit more spontaneous, like a spill, I'm not even going to use any of that. I'm just going to let it go where it wants to, guide it a little bit, and then that way it gives it a slightly more realistic poured look. Alright, so I am just going to pour the Isomalt on. Again, I'm pouring on the matte side, not the shiny side. So I'm going to start in the middle, and I want to go slow so it doesn't run over any of the edges or anything like that. I just want to kind of keep it all into one spot. So I will kind of move it around, you'll see, as I'm pouring, but I'm not going to go crazy and pour too much at once because I want to see where it's going to go. Okay, so just kind of letting everything run where it wants to. You can see Isomalt's pretty thick, it has a lot of surface tension, so it's not going to run all over the place as long as you don't pour too much. So you can see I am kind of guiding it so that the surface isn't perfect. And if you have a certain spot on the sheet that you really, really like and you want to highlight, you can kind of guide it over there. I want to leave the little tendrils that are kind of going off of it to make it an irregular shape. I want to leave those wide because I find if they're too skinny of little pieces off the sides, it doesn't look quite as realistic. Now you see I'm getting some little bubbles in it, and that's okay, that's natural. Sometimes they just pop up from the heat, they get caught, but we can get rid of all those. I don't want to use all my Isomalt because we want enough to do our blown pieces and to fill in our wand, but I used about maybe half or so of it. Alright, so you can see I kind of like that shape. I think it's really cool. You could tilt the page very, very carefully if you want to. Just be really careful because, one, of course, it is hot. Isomalt's about 300 degrees, so I do recommend wearing your gloves for this and making sure that you don't stick your finger in it or anything like that. So just wear your gloves, like a cotton glove, and then a nitrile glove over top is usually what I recommend. I'm not wearing the gloves today. Don't follow my bad example. I just have been working with this for about 14 years, and so my hands have no heat sensitivity left when I'm working. It's easier for me to show you guys without the gloves, but I do recommend them. Now before this sets up, I'm just going to lightly go over the surface, and you see how that just completely popped any little surface bubbles. Again, hot air rises, so if I have any little bubbles, they'll usually just rise up to the top, and I zap them with the torch while it's warm, and that way it just kind of flattens itself over since it's all nice and liquid. So we could add to that a little bit if we want to while it's warm, but I'm pretty happy with that, so I'm going to go ahead and let it cool. This will take probably about 15 to 20 minutes at room temperature. You never want to put the Isomalt in the fridge or the freezer. You want to make sure it stays nice and cool, but not cold, because the moisture and the condensation can make it a little sticky. So we just leave that, and I'll just slide that over, and you can see already it's making those colors really, really vivid, and it's going to be really pretty once we pull it off of that sheet. So I just poured it on, and now I'm going to let it cool off to the side. Guys, have any questions so far? Everybody doing good? Alright, awesome, awesome. Hey Monique! Glad you made it in. Hey Gabby, I'm just looking at all the comments, make sure everything is good. Alright, so while that's cooling, we're going to make our other elements of our bubble wand and then our bubbles. So the bubble wand is one of our new Simi molds, so this is one of our designs, but remember you can pour Isomalt into any high heat non-stick silicone mold. So I just have my cute little bubble wand here, and I'm going to pour the Isomalt in. Now you can paint on top of Isomalt if you want to pour everything clear, but just to make it a little bit faster on myself, I'm just going to mix some color into my Isomalt to make it a different color than the base, so it really pops. So I'm going to section a little bit of my clear Isomalt into the bowl here. It won't take very much to fill the bubble wand, so I'm not even going to pour half of what's left, maybe just a couple ounces. Okay, so I still have some left in here for our bubbles later, but in this one we're going to do our white for the bubble wand. Now of course you guys can use whatever colors that you would like, it's up to you, but I'm going to do white. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my white color. Now you can use a couple different things to color the Isomalt white. Traditionally, you can use a white petal dust. White petal dust is going to be a nice opaque color rather than a see-through color like you'll usually get with airbrush colors. So you can use that white petal dust mixed in. You just have to make sure you really stir it in, because sometimes it can seize a little bit and clump. So you want to make sure that you really stir it well, and that you reboil it after you stir the color in to make sure that it's all going to break up and be an even amount of color. Now what I'm going to use, of course, is our new base white Simi color splash. So this is our new line of liquid airbrush colors, so they are a water-based. And I'm just going to mix a couple drops of this in. So this is actually, all the other colors in this line are see-through, but the base white is very thick, and you can feel if you have it, it's very heavy, and that's all the opaque pigment that's in there. So all I have to do is add a couple drops, and it will disperse beautifully. Okay, so that is about 3 drops into just a couple ounces of Isomalt. And I'm just going to stir that in with my silicone spatula. Alright, and you can see how opaque that got. It's just completely solid now, and so it's going to make sure that it's going to pop. Now you can also mix a color into this white, so if you wanted it opaque, but you wanted, let's say, like a bright pink or a bright purple, which would be really cute with this piece, you can put a couple drops of whatever airbrush color you want, or luster dust. You can mix luster and petal dust into this as well. But I'm just going to go ahead and leave it white, so I'm going to pop that Isomalt. I know it's a little hard to see white on white, but I'm going to pop that back into the microwave and just reliquify it so that I can very easily pour it into my mold. Alright. So I'll just pop that in for another 20 seconds or so, again, just to get it a little bit softer and more pourable, since it had thickened as I was making my other pieces, and stirring it is always going to make it a little bit more thick as well. Okay, so I don't know if you can see, but there's some little bubbles there in the surface. So again, I just wait for those to disperse before I pour it. I may give it one more stir just to make sure it's all the color is evenly stirred in there, since it was getting a little bit thick before.
Sydney, Sandra would like to know, if we decide to do the color after instead of before putting it into the mold, what do you use to color it?
You can use pretty much anything sticky, so I could use the same color splash colors, the airbrush colors, to paint on. You can airbrush it with an actual airbrush instead of hand painting. You could use gel colors that have been thinned down a little bit to paint on nicely. And you can also use a luster dust, either dry or wet, mixed with alcohol. That will paint on really pretty as well. You just want to make sure that you don't use dry petal dust, because dry petal dust won't stick. You have to mix it with some sort of liquid. But pretty much anything sticky is going to stick. So I did stir it again, which cooled it since I'm using such a small amount. So I'm just going to pop it back into the microwave for a few more seconds. But you can see that there's really no limit to how many times you can remelt Isomalt. Okay, you can burn it, so you don't want to do it for too long at once. You'll know it's burnt if it starts getting a little yellow, or you can smell the caramelization happening. But as long as you do it for only about 15 to 20 seconds at a time, if you're reheating, it will be totally fine. And because this is a silicone mold, I don't have to grease or powder it at all. There we go. So I have a nice boil there, if you guys can kind of see those bubbles popping. And I'm just going to pour that into my mold. I did want it to be pretty runny because this is a pretty thin mold. It may take a couple times if you're newer to pouring Isomalt. It may take a few times to practice this, but again, you can remelt any ones that you don't want to use just because it's so thin. But I'm just going to let my Isomalt settle so that the bubbles kind of calm down before I go ahead and pour it into the mold. This is the silicone bowl that we have on our site, and I really like it because it's super flexible, so it's good for kind of making a little spout at the top that you can pour out of. So again, just practicing my patience skills and waiting for all those bubbles to disperse. Alright, and now I'm just going to pour around the center so that the hole in the center of the bubble wand is empty, and then I'll pour up the wand as well. I know you guys are right above me, so it might be a little bit hard to see at this point, but as I move, you'll see where I'm filling. Alright, so you see I just poured a little bit in there, and then I'm going to grab either a toothpick or a silicone tool to go ahead and just spread that into any cracks and crevices. I'm not going to worry about it overflowing a little bit, or if I get some rough edges, because it's very easy to clean up after. I'm more focused right now on getting the whole cavity filled. Alright, just like that. And so just like with the clear piece, if I have any bubbles on the surface, I can just very lightly torch those away. Okay, it's not really that big of a deal for opaque pieces because you're not going to see the bubbles inside if there was a couple on the back, but it definitely is more so habit at this point, and to make sure the back is nice and level and there's no bumps or anything from bubbles cooling there. So I just will let this one cool. This is a smaller piece and very thin compared to the big blob that we poured before, so this one's probably going to take a maximum of like 8 to 10 minutes at room temperature to cool, so that will be perfect timing as we go to make our bubbles and then start to put everything together. So we'll slide that guy over and let that cool. Alright, so I'm just going to pick up a couple of my tools here as we move on to our next technique, which is going to be doing the blown bubbles. Now, you don't have to have a heat lamp for this. Just because I tend to go a little bit slower as I'm talking and everything, I am going to plug in my heat lamp just so it stays nice and warm. So I use a 250 watt bulb. It's going to keep everything nice and warm and pliable so that I don't have to go too quickly before as I'm setting up my bubble and everything. But while I'm doing that, I am going to pop my clear back into the microwave and go ahead and get that melted because I want to color this a little bit. So I'll just pop that in for 30 seconds and now I'm just going to go over and plug in my heat lamp. Alright, so like I was saying before, I do want to focus a little bit on making some smaller bubbles. I do have lots of, or a couple different tutorials on making bubbles on my Isomalt Basic series on my YouTube and with some different live stream projects like this that I've done in the past. But I wanted to, you know, I'll still give you a crash course on how to make bubbles in any sort of size. But I also wanted to focus in, because I get a lot of questions on how to make tiny little bubbles. So I'm going to give you some tips for making those itty bitty little bubbles that are going to work well on this piece, but I really do think that even big ones are going to look super cute with this. Alright, I didn't melt it down all the way, so I didn't bring it to a complete boil, and there's still some parts that look a little thicker than others, but we're just coloring it right now, so I'm not really too worried about that. Alright, so to color this, I am going to be using a little bit more of the Simi color splash, so this is going to be the ocean blue color. Again, this is a water base, so remember, only the base white was opaque. Now these are see-through, all of the colors themselves. That way you can mix and match them with the base white if you want it see-through or opaque. Now, I don't want to put a whole drop of this because this is a very, very dark blue. All these colors are intensely pigmented, so even 1 or 2 drops into this is going to make like a deep, deep ocean or navy blue if you add enough of it. So I just want to add a tiny touch so that it matches sort of the more pastel colors of my sheet. So instead, I'm going to put a couple drops into a container. You could unscrew it if you want, but I tend to knock things over, so I don't want to unscrew the whole bottle and leave it out on my table as I'm working. So I just put a little bit into a cup, and then, oh, you can see a tiny bit already gone in there, but I'm just going to dip my toothpick into the cup and then just stir that tiny bit, and you're going to see that itty bitty little toothpick bit stirred in, how intense it makes that blue.
Sid, Becky would like to know, are you going to have the new colors at the Dallas Cookie Con?
Yes, we're going to be at the Dallas Cookie Con. We have a vendor booth and I'm teaching my Isomalt Bubble Girl class, and we will have the colors individually and in bundles with all the colors as well available.
Did you see Karen's message? She has trouble with the little skinny pieces.
Yeah, those little skinny pieces can be a little bit tricky, but having a small bowl or a bowl that you can really make a tiny little spout like that is always going to be helpful.
And liquidy.
Yeah, and definitely the more liquidy, the better, because the thinner it is, the easier it's going to pour. All right, so you can see that was just a toothpick dip, and that gave me like a beautiful crystal sky blue. So imagine if I had done a whole entire drop, how dark that would be. I wanted them to be really dark, that way you can just put little bits in it at a time for light colors, or put a lot more in for darker colors. But even so, I mean, it's going to be really, really deep and intense if you add only a few drops. Now, if you got this bundle, or if you've seen my other videos on the color splash, you'll see that the bundle, or we have it individually too, is going to come with a dilution solution. The dilution solution is for mixing with the colors to lighten the colors, but that's only for painting on top. So it's for airbrushing and hand painting. You can't mix dilution solution into the Isomalt. So basically, what the dilution solution is it's a clear mixing medium. It's an edible, you know, paint thinner essentially. So it's going to thin down the colors and make everything nice and see-through. But it has glycerin in it, which is why it paints on so beautifully and smooth, but it doesn't mix well into the Isomalt because it can make things too stretchy. So dilution solution is basically just, like I said, a clear, you know, mixing medium. In this case, your Isomalt is your clear mixing medium. So you don't need anything additional. You just need to only add a little bit of the color, and then it dilutes it by itself if you don't add too much at once. Okay, if that makes sense. All right, so I'm just going to pour a little bit of Isomalt out onto my silicone mat. So I'm going to switch to my silicone baking mat. This one is going to be really nice and flexible, so it's going to be a little bit easier to pull on. But I do keep my other silicone mat underneath, and I like that double mat because it's going to keep everything up and away from my table a little bit. I don't want to insulate too much heat because from too much heat, the pores of the silicone can open up, and the Isomalt can get stuck down in them and cause it to stick. So I don't want to have any insulation of heat, which is why I like to buffer the heat from my table a little bit using the double mat. Now if you're working on a stone or a marble countertop, I still like that double mat because it's going to keep it away from the cold so it won't dry as quick or cool as quickly. So the double mat is generally my way to go, and I'm just going to pour out my Isomalt onto the mat and then start folding in cool air to thicken it. This is going to react almost like dough or and turn into a clay as it cools and as it's ready. So all I'm going to have to do is I'm just going to have to keep cooling it and it will all come together. All right, so as I'm folding, I'm just going to look through the comments. I see you got a couple questions. Karen asked if we're going to be at Cake International. Unfortunately, we're not going to be at Cake International in November, just for you know, traveling reasons since we are in the U.S. But we're hopefully going to be able to come to the one in the spring, and then next year, of course, again in Birmingham. So hopefully we will see you there next year. Let's see. Will you have the same stuff you're selling at Dallas CookieCon on your website for those who won't be able to make it? Yes, we will have, or we do have all of the products that I'm using, the mats, the tools, the Isomalt, and the colors are all up now on my website, simicakes.com. It's right down, where is it? Somewhere over here. Right down here, simicakes.com. And if you click the shop tab at the top, it will bring you to all of our products, and we can ship anywhere directly to you if you can't come to the CookieCon. We'll also be at the Atlanta show too. The Ultimate Sugar Show at the end of this month will be there too. So if you're near Atlanta, come and see us.
You had some really fun cookie kits that you put. Did you put those online too?
Yes, they are online. I haven't really posted enough about the kits themselves, but I do have a couple of different cookie kits that I'll definitely post about in the coming weeks of some video tutorials that go with the whole kit to make the project, which is really fun for especially beginners. If you want to get into Isomalt but you're not sure where to start, it gives you a project to work on. Let's see, Sabrina said, I took your class in Orlando but didn't have the money for the bundle at the time. Can I still buy it? Yes, like I said, everything is listed on the website, so you can check it all out there.
It's still on sale.
Yeah, it's still on the introductory price. It's still on sale, so you'll get the same pricing that we had it in Orlando.
When are you coming to Pennsylvania?
I don't think we have any plans for Pennsylvania.
Virginia.
Yeah, we're going to be in Virginia, which isn't too far, at least in the general area, in March. Okay, awesome. We'll also be at the Jersey Shore Cake Show, too, next year in October, in a year from now. Let's see, Sandra said, will you be saving this live? Yes, this live will be available as soon as I'm finished. You'll be able to go back and watch it. And I also upload all of my past live stream projects onto my YouTube channel as well, which is just under my name, Sidney Galpern. So you can watch all my past projects. Since we never get rid of the kits, the accessory kits for this, you can watch it at any point. All right. Let's see. Manouk said she can't wait for the borders to open so you can go and come take a class. Yes, I can't wait for that either.
I know. This is crazy. Right?
Hopefully soon we will be able to go back to a little bit more normal traveling. All right, so you see how I'm just pulling and folding in some cool air, and it's getting that beautiful satin shine. I'm making sure that I don't twist it or knead it, because you can see those streaks of air that I'm kneading in. Those are going to be seen in the finished piece. That's the look of blown sugar and pulled sugar. So I'm just cooling it down a little bit once it wasn't sticky and sticking to the mat. And I'm just going to go ahead and pull this until it's the texture that I like. So it kind of takes a little bit of practice of knowing what texture you like, but once you do it a few times, you'll kind of get an idea of when it's too soft or when it is a little bit too hard. So you kind of want to catch it in the middle. Excuse me. All right, so I just set that under my heat lamp, but if you don't have a heat lamp, you can just immediately start to get your pump ready. So the pump that I'm using is my Simi sugar pump that we have on our website, so you can see that the end is a little bit seasoned, so that, or actually a lot seasoned, because I have used this pump quite a lot. I do have a YouTube video. If you get a brand new pump, it's not going to have all that Isomalt and that texture on the end, but I do like to have that so that it really, really grips on nicely. So essentially all I did on the metal is I put some cuts in it with the scissors to make sure it's nice and textured, and then I dipped it in a little bit of liquid Isomalt to just add something to heat up once I go to put my Isomalt pieces on the end. All right, so I'm just going to cut a little piece off here. Okay, tip number one for making smaller bubbles is not to cut too much off. So you can see I'm going to go a little bit bigger on the bigger end of the pieces that I would make for this piece. And I can grab a ruler here if you guys want the exact size. It is about 1 inch in diameter. Okay, so it's going to be right back under the lamp here for a second while I get ready to keep it warm. Okay, so I'm just going to heat up the end of that pipe so that it gets nice and sticky. And I'm going to insert it onto the end of my pipe about 1/3 of the way into the ball. So the pipe should be slightly less than halfway up into the ball of Isomalt. And then I just stick and attach it down onto the pipe to make sure it's nice and secure. It's not going to fly off when I start pumping, and it is going to not leak out any air either. Okay, so you can see in the actual ball of Isomalt, the pipe is still slightly less than halfway to the center of the ball itself. Now we're going to give it a pump, but we don't want to pump too much because we don't want the pressure to get too intense, especially with small little bubbles. So we are going to pump. It's not going to feel or look like anything's happening, but the pressure has to build in the pipe first. So we're just going to watch it really closely. Now with little bubbles, I don't tend to squeeze as hard as others because I don't want, again, too much pressure in there. So we're just going to keep an eye on it. Oh, there's our little bubble. Okay, you see how I only pumped once and I waited a few seconds before I continue because usually there's a slight delayed reaction until the air goes in. Now I'm going to start stretching this up off the pipe. So you see at first the pipe was inside the bubble, but now I'm stretching upwards to pull it up and off of the pipe. I'm still maintaining that open airflow between the two, so I can still add tiny bits of air. But the thing with little bubbles is you don't want to put too much air into them, right? Because then it's going to get way too big. So pretty much after the first initial pump, the only time that I pump after that is to fill out any dents that I made or to balance out the shape a little bit. But I'm not actively pumping to try and make them bigger. So you see that? It didn't actually get bigger, but that top just kind of puffed out a little bit. All right. So now I'm just shaping it. If I see anything getting thinner, so like the top was getting a little bit thinner, just because it's a little warmer there. If you have a warm spot, the air is automatically going to push there because it's softer than the rest when it's warmer. So if you have a spot like that, you can press it onto a cool surface and just cool that thin spot, and then that just hardens it a little bit so that the air stops only going there. It's all about balance, so then I can kind of go back and shape it, add little puffs of air if I need to. Now, I generally will hold my pipe straight up and down so that the Isomalt is balanced. I'm just holding it on its side so you guys can kind of see what I'm doing, but you're going to have the best luck if you're holding it up and down. Now, a texture thing to kind of know if you have the right texture or not is that when you're holding the pipe up and down, you notice how my bubble's not slumping. It's not falling down. It wasn't even doing that when it was solid and a little bit warmer. When I first put it on, it wasn't slumping over. So if your Isomalt is slumping over really, really quickly, that means your Isomalt's too hot and you want to take it off and pull it a little bit more to add some more cool air into it. Now, it is still very pliable though, so like you can see I was able to bend that, but it's not bending by itself. You don't want it to do anything you're not telling it to, because then it's just going to be very frustrating trying to correct things that it's doing on its own. But if you have it at the right texture, it should only really move when you tell it to. Alright, so I'm pretty happy with that. You can see I'm not going overboard with the air. I usually stop when it starts to look a little bit transparent, so I can definitely tell it is a hollow bubble, but I'm not making it so big and thin that it's super fragile. Now, another tip for making the really small bubbles is going to be making the stem more elongated. So I generally, like I said, I was just kind of rolling and stretching the stem a little bit longer. So I generally will make that about 1/2 inch to 1 inch from the top of the pipe to the bottom of the bubble. But when you are making that stem, you're moving your fingers up higher the longer you're making it. So I'm not trying to move and budge all of this hard stuff around the pipe. I'm actually kind of almost thinning out what's already blown. I'm thinning out the soft stuff up here. And potentially, the longer that you make that stem and the higher you go with your fingers as you're skinnying it out, it takes away from the size of the bubble, if that makes sense. So you're reducing the size of the bubble by using up all of the blown bubble and thinning it out into a stem. Does that make sense? So the longer that you make the stem, it's using up some of the Isomalt that you have started with, and it makes your bubbles smaller and smaller. Now, little bubbles are harder than bigger bubbles for a couple of reasons. The main reason is going to be that they're smaller, so you really only have one pump and it's done. You don't have as many pumps to get it right and to make it balanced and make sure that it's all even. And another reason is going to be because it's smaller, it's more susceptible to cool air. So it's going to harden a lot faster, and it can also heat a lot faster, and it's just going to not be as much mass to hold in that heat. So definitely if you're newer to bubbles, I recommend starting with more like a golf ball size so that you have more to work with, you can get a feel for it, and then sort of work your way smaller and smaller as you go, because you will notice a difference.
I like giant bubbles.
Yeah, giant bubbles are awesome. They look really, really cool for a lot of projects. And you have opposite things, you know, with the bigger bubbles too. I mean, they're going to be really big, so they hold a lot of heat. It takes a long time to cool them down, which means they don't want to hold their shape as quickly as these do. They're going to be heavier, so it may be more tending to want to bend or stretch or fall out of the shape that you put it in. So, I mean, of course, it's just learning the little tips and tricks for each variation of something that you want to create. And remember, you can remelt these, so if you don't like it, if you're just practicing, try and go through all the steps so you have practice in every single step, and then, you know, take it off and remelt it afterwards. But don't stop in the, you know, halfway mark, because you want to get practice in each one of those steps that you're doing. Okay, so you see how I was just cooling it down? You don't want to take it off immediately when you're done because the Isomalt is still warm. So after I'm done shaping it, I always cool it down by just rotating it in front of the cool fan to harden it up. And then in that little stem that I made that's right between the bubble and the pipe, I'll just lightly heat that up and cut it off with scissors. Okay, you can always heat more, but you can't take heat away. So I'm going to start by just kind of lightly imprinting it with my scissors, and then I actually turn it and imprint the other direction. And I turn it, and I keep doing that so that it's all going to be rounded. If I just try and cut straight through, it can flatten the bottom. So I want to keep this as round as possible. We put all that work into making it round. So I'm not twisting it like while it's locked into the scissors. I'm letting go with my scissors and cutting in different directions. Okay, once it cuts off, you have your little bubble. Okay, I can just lightly flatten that if I want, because that base is still a little warm from torching it. Okay, but I'm not really going to worry too much about what that looks like, because that's where we're going to attach it onto our base anyway. If you want to just very, very lightly hit it with the torch in order to flatten it a little more, you can. Just make sure whenever you are torching your bubble, you're not torching directly at it. You're kind of like brushing the heat up to it instead of pointing it at the bubble. Also, don't hold things and torch them, so you see how I set it down and then torched. Definitely don't want to get your fingers. Alright, and there's our cute little bubble. Ta-da! Alright, so like I said, start with a little bit bigger, maybe more like a golf ball size, and work your way smaller if you don't have as much practice with the bubbles. But once you get all the different steps down, they kind of all work together. So you'll learn the more and more that you do, how to do them, you know, better and better, and how to get them more even and everything. Now, when you're done with your pipe, you'll see you do have a lot of Isomalt left on the end that's going to be hard. So all I do is just hold that over my bowl. I'm going to torch it all the way around. You don't want that to be dripping because you don't want to burn the Isomalt. You just want to soften it and cut it off, kind of like we just did. So I just take my scissors parallel to the pipe, and I almost just pry it off rather than trying to cut all the way through, because only the outside will be hot from the torch. Okay, main thing is that's open, it's not clogged, so you guys can hear that air. Now there's also a valve on your pump, or at least for our Simi sugar pumps, we have the valve on there. Now a lot of times if I'm just doing simple shapes and things, I don't worry about the valve. You always want that to be closed so that it's not letting any air leak. So when the top is covered and you're pumping, you shouldn't hear any air, okay? It should be building up the pressure in here and not letting anything leak out. If that's open, even when the top's closed off, you're going to hear the air leaking out. So I always make sure that's closed, but with little bubbles, you can use that to your advantage sometimes, because sometimes when you first put that bubble on, or the piece of Isomalt on, and you give it that first pump, sometimes the air slowly starts going in and you realize, oh my gosh, that is way too much air, it's going to get too big, and it goes slow, so you can kind of have this thought process as the air is expanding. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll give it that first pump, and then as the air is going in, you can let the pressure out. Okay, so as soon as you open the valve, the air pressure is going to want to go out there instead of pushing into the thick Isomalt, because it's easier to escape here than it is up there. So sometimes I will let the valve off to let some of the excess air out as I'm pumping, or even just lightly open it as I'm regularly pumping. You want it closed though at first to force the air into the bubble. Otherwise all the air is just going to leak out here. So that's not something that I do very often, but I did want to just talk a little bit about the valve, because it can affect how much air is going in. So if you feel like you're way over pumping and blowing your bubble too big, try letting out the air a little bit as you're pumping, and it will definitely help to not over expand your bubbles. Alright, so we have our little bubble here. I did make a couple extra bubbles off to the side that I'm going to go grab for when we put everything together, but that's just kind of the basics of your little bubbles. Okay, like I said, go through all of the steps. You don't want to stop at the first step because then you're not going to know what all of the rest of the steps in that process are going to have, right? So you want to go through every single step before you scrap it and start again. That way you have practice in as much as possible. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and turn off my lamp here. Alright, just to keep everything a little bit cool as we are cleaning up our other pieces and doing a little bit of painting and assembling. I'll also grab my extra bubbles that I made. Whoop. Oh, I just grabbed one, but it didn't break. So you can see how strong Isomalt is. Alright, so I have my 3 little extra bubbles here, just some tiny ones. So like I said, the diameter of the initial ball of Isomalt was about 1 inch. The diameter of the finished bubble, this is the one that I made just now, is 1 inch. So you do lose a lot of the initial Isomalt going around your pipe, especially for those small ones. So I generally say you can get the finished bubble compared to the piece you start with. It's going to get about the same size to double the size of what you start with, just for sizing. It depends on how much air you put into it, but it's going to be around the same size when you're finished as what you start with. So if you want something really small, you start with a smaller piece. Alright, so I'll put these little guys off to the side and move my pulling mat out of the way while we check on our other pieces. Alright, so let's go ahead and clean up our little bubble wand first. So I'm just going to take and flex my mold very gently. I don't want to snap him. And look how cute that is. I absolutely love this mold. I just think that it is so, so cute. But you can see there is some little rough edges along the back from where I spread it into the mold. So I'm going to get rid of those first. I'm just going to put this face down on my mat. So all the texture that was in my mold, I want to put face down to protect it from melting. And then I'm just lightly torching around the edges to smooth over any sharp points. If you really overflowed, you can do that same step, let it cool for about 10 seconds, and then with gloved hands you can pick it up and actually trim it if you want to with your scissors to make sure that it's all going to be nice and smooth if you got any really big overflows or anything, because I know, like we were talking about before, it can be a little bit tricky to get into those thin areas. Okay, it was getting a little bit warm from torching, so I just want to make sure that it wasn't sagging or anything like that, so I just flipped it over to let it cool down the rest of the way. But I'll hold that up in a second for you guys to see. Alright, and that torching usually smooths it over enough that you don't have to trim it too much. But again, if you had a really big spill that didn't go away with the torching, you can just use your scissors. Alright, now I have my transfer sheet here that we had poured before. So you always want to make sure, and with the bubble wand too, but especially with bigger pieces, I knew the bubble wand was cool because it's so thin it doesn't take very long, but with bigger pieces, because it still looks exactly the same as it did when we poured it when it was hot, you don't just want to stick your finger in it or touch it just in case it was too warm still. So I'm tapping it with a tool, make sure it's nice and hard, it doesn't leave a dent. Alright, and like I said, the plastic backing is just going to peel away, so all we have to do is pull that away, and look at that, it just completely comes off, and then you're left with your pattern in your Isomalt. Isn't that awesome?
That is so beautiful.
Here, let's look at it. I'm just going to brush off some of the edges because sometimes the excess paper at the edges just sticks, but you don't have to worry about any of the edges having to be cut off or trimmed or anything because it only transfers where that Isomalt touches. So let's put it on the white so you can see that beautiful pattern. So like I said, I have those pre-printed on my website. This is the one that came with the accessory kit for this project, but you can get full sheets of this and you can get lots of other patterns. Or if you have an edible printer, you can get blank transfer sheets, Isomalt transfer sheets, from Icing Images, which is who I developed this with, and you can print anything you want. So you can print your own patterns, you can print pictures, you can print monograms, and you could pour on regular icing sheets as well, the nice thick icing sheets, but they're going to be a white background, right? Where this is going to be that beautiful thin see-through. I use both, it just depends on the look I'm going for, but for this, of course, you do want it to be really realistic, so I have that see-through sort of look, just like it was the bubble juice spilling out. All right, yay, I'm so glad you guys like it. We're gonna go ahead and put everything together now. Before I do that, I do wanna just dust my wand a little bit because you can see it is really pretty, but it's a little bit hard to see the ridges and things. That's just because of the way that Isomalt reflects. It really absorbs light. Opaque pieces are a little bit better than poured pieces with this, but you definitely wanna make everything pop as much as possible. So I'm gonna grab a paper towel. You can dust and paint after the whole piece is together, but luster dust tends to want to get everywhere, and I don't want it on the rest of my pieces. I want those to look very clear and glassy, so I'm just going to take a little bit of pearl dust and dust it now, and I'm just going to do it dry. This is just Super Pearl from the Sugar Art. Okay, take a nice puffy brush so it's going to be even. Okay, and just take a little bit on the ridges of this piece. And now if you wanted it to have like a holographic effect, kind of like the base, you could do like a pink or a purple or something like that to give it that slight iridescent hint. Okay, you can, like I said, paint it with other mediums like the airbrush colors. You can airbrush it, hand paint it, use gel colors. If you wanted a more intense shimmery look, you can mix alcohol into this dust. But I'll hold it up so hopefully you guys can see with the lighting how much more shiny and distinctive that is. Yeah, you can see those lines are popping a lot better. The ridges in the handle is popping a lot better, and it's just going to make it catch the light and reflect that light back at you rather than absorbing the light in and being a little bit more matte.
Sid, is Sugar Art FDA approved?
Yeah, the Sugar Art is FDA completely edible. I believe so. I know it's completely edible on here. Yeah, it says FDA certified right there on the label. Yep, I love their colors because they even have some duochrome colors too. So like it looks, you know, green in one light, but if you look at it at a different angle, they have like red tones to them, which would be really pretty with this piece too. All right, and then you can use liquid Isomalt as a glue for this to glue it all together, but all these pieces are pretty lightweight, so you don't have to necessarily use the liquid glue. I'm going to use that when I do my heavier pieces, so I'm just kind of positioning it, seeing where I want this to go. I think I'll probably do something like that. So all we're going to do, I don't like to torch the piece if possible. I might do it just a little bit because warm sticks to warm better than warm to cool, but I don't want to risk melting this too much and it bending or bowing. So I'm mostly just going to heat my base. And I heat it so it almost starts bubbling a little bit, and I'm actually pushing it down in so it looks like it's sunken in, and it creates a little bit of like a blob, if you will, on the outside edges. If you can see that, you see how it looks like it's, when the light catches it, it looks like it's almost recessed or like sitting inside liquid. All right. Then you can position your bubbles however you want. You can stack them, you can move them around. For this, I am going to remelt just a little bit of my Isomalt for stacking them since you don't want to torch your bubbles. So any bubbles that I can attach flat, I can just torch the base, but since I don't want to torch the bubble itself, I just want to make sure that it's all going to be nice and safe. So I'll just, again, start planning where I want everything to go, and you kind of have to just play around with this and see what you like, because you want to make sure that everything is going to sit nicely, and you can't move things once they're attached. You can't take them off. So I'm just going to stack a few bubbles here and figure out where I want everything. Okay, grab my Isomalt glue. Isomalt's a great glue for a lot of different things because it is going to be clear, it's going to dry almost instantly, and it's super strong because it melts into the surface of your piece. So you can dip right into the bowl. If you're worried about that a little bit, you can just pour some out and dip into that. So I'm just gonna dip and stick. I'm not going to cover up the whole bubble wand. I'll tip it up to the front so you can see it in a second. So from this front view, I can still see the whole of the bubble wand since I want it to still look like the bubble wand very clearly. I'm going to stack these, so I do want to keep my fan at the ready to cool these. I don't want, since I'm going to have glue here, I don't want the glue to heat up the top bubble of the one underneath, or the top of the bubble underneath and sink into itself. So I'm just going to dip it in a tiny bit of glue, stick it on, and then immediately just hold it in place to make sure the weight's not sinking downwards, and cooling it with my little fan. You don't want to use cold spray or anything like that with Isomalt because it's like glass, so it can shatter it. Okay. So I just hold that into place, and then I'll put my other guy. Ooh, I'm all dropsy today. Alright, same thing over here, and because they're so lightweight, you can get pretty gravity defying with this. So I'm just going to kind of pull it over so that they have sort of like an offset snowman look. Again, I know you guys are right above it, but I'll hold it up so you can see the positioning that I did, but I just dipped and stick. Alright, now when my whole piece is put together, I will spray it. Isomalt's going to be a lot better in humidity than sugar would, because sugar tends to melt and gets sticky, but Isomalt, it can get a little sticky and cloudy from humidity, but it's going to hold up better. But my secret weapon is going to be the clear edible glaze spray. So when I'm done with my piece, it's all painted and put together, as soon as possible I will spray it with this glaze. The glaze will lock out moisture and humidity, and it will keep everything nice and smooth. As long as you keep it in an air conditioned environment. I've had pieces last for months, even for years, just from glazing it. But you can also give it a second coat if it is particularly sticky in your area, or if it's summer and it's extra humid. Okay, you can see this little bit of glue that I had poured out has already cooled, so I can just throw it back in the bowl and reuse it. I'm not going to spray it right now with the glaze because I don't want it to get everywhere, because the glaze does not like to come off of things. It is edible though, which is crazy. So I just put it on a covered table, cover it with some plastic or paper, and then spray it like that. Oh, look at that. I just popped his little base off, but that's okay. I just did that on purpose to show you guys how easy it is to put back together. Look at that. Nobody will ever know. Okay. So you do want to be mindful where you're picking it up to make sure that no pressure is being put onto any of the fragile areas. But if that happens, you just bring a blowtorch along with you for your delivery. And there you go. There is my finished bubble. Isn't that so cute with the little bubbles floating up to the top? And I could decorate it with more. I could do different sizes if I want to, but it has that really cool holographic look. So like Mom had mentioned earlier, you can have this tilting down or pouring down the side of a cake. So you can make this piece, but before the Isomalt cools all the way on the sheet, you can actually lift it up and lay it over a form. So you could use a dummy cake or something like that and have it pouring downwards. Or if you wanted to do something super freeform, you can pour the Isomalt directly on the fondant or pull it and attach it on, you know, hand sculpted like I've done in my past like waterfall video. And then you could go back and airbrush this sort of look as well. So it gives you different options, but you can definitely put this into a form or over a specific shape if you want it to look like it's pouring over the side of the cake. Maybe that really cool, like the drip cakes that were so popular, you can definitely do that, you know, with the Isomalt, but then have the holographic look into it as well. So you could pour the individual drips on the sheet and tilt them to have them drip, and then just attach them on one by one to the side of your cake using a little bit of liquid Isomalt. All right, what do you guys think? I'm going to tilt this up so you can see it at a sideways angle. Hi again, guys. Make sure this is at a good...
It's so cool though from above too.
It is, yeah. It has so many different views to it. I just want to make sure you guys can see the kind of shape of it. Okay, you can't even see where I snapped that little guy, so just a little bit of heat puts everything back together. Isomalt's super forgiving. You can always torch it, you can always melt it back down, and it really just gives you that ease of use and that instant gratification that I love. Alright, so there is our blown Isomalt bubble wand. This could be used for toppers. You can use this for cake toppers, for cupcake toppers if you just did a couple little bubbles, or maybe a bubble wand, you know, for the centerpiece, and then some cute little holographic puddles on each one. You don't have to pour the whole sheet, so like I think I tossed the rest of my transfer sheet, but I still had a little bit of the paper left over on the edges from where I didn't pour it out on. You can put that in an airtight container and seal it, and then you can just go back and reuse it anytime you want. So you could pour individual little puddles would be super cute. You know, there's lots of different things that you can keep, you know, tying into your piece to use it in different ways. So it doesn't just have to be this. You can customize it and modify it to what's going to work best in your pieces. Alright, oh, I'm so glad you guys like it. I'm so excited. Make sure if you did follow along with this that you post your pictures and tag me in them, or post them in the Simi Torch team. If you're not a part of the Simi Torch team, it is our free Facebook group for all things Isomalt. Super duper fun, very encouraging for all levels, so make sure you join the Simi Torch team. You can just search for it and join, or message me and I'll send you the link. And we do super fun like giveaways, we do challenges, we do game nights, we do demonstrations, live demonstrations like this from other artists. So definitely make sure you join if you are not already, and it's really fun to post our pictures from things like this so you can each see each other's work.
Pat Ashley had a question.
Yes.
Do you,
yeah, any questions, guys?
Yeah. can you melt it back down with the glaze on it?
You could. I try not to do that. For flat things, like maybe just repouring the bubble wand or something like that that's not really holding any shape other than laying flat, it would probably be fine, but I wouldn't use it for anything like pulling or blowing, because the glaze will definitely mix in and affect the texture of it and not allow it to hold as strong. All right, what am I using for the transfers? They're the Simi Isomalt Transfer Sheets. We have them pre-printed on our website that you can order in this design and lots of others, or you can get the blank sheets from Icing Images and print whatever you want on your own edible printer too. But the ones that I'm using are on my website, simicakes.com, right over here, and you can check out all my other tutorials. Like I said, if you're just jumping in and you want to see the replay of this, it will be available, and I also upload all my past live streams onto my YouTube channel, which is just under my name, Sidney Galpern, and you can check out my past ones. We have all the accessory kits available for all the projects, including this one, so if you saw it now and want to recreate it, you can use what you have, but you can also get the exact molds and transfers and Isomalt all in one kit. All right, yeah, if you guys have any other questions, let me know. I wanted to tell you guys a little bit about some of my upcoming events, because I have a super exciting announcement that I have not announced anywhere else before, so I'm really excited to tell you guys about it. But first, let's just look at our Simi calendar of events for September. I'm going to put that up on the screen here. So this is available on the Simi Torch team. I post this every month with all of our different events that are going on. So we just got back from CookieCon Orlando, as you guys can see. And then we also are going to have our Florida Isis Day of Sharing. That's going to be this Sunday. So if there's any local Orlando or surrounding area peeps, we're going to be doing some really, really fun hands-on demonstrations this Sunday. It's going to be me and the amazing Mercedes Strowski is going to be doing those. These are the pieces that I'm going to be making, plus a couple extras of some pumpkins and fun things like that. So if you're in the Orlando area, just message me and I can get you the info for that. But it's going to be super duper fun this Sunday. And then if you're not in the Orlando area, we have some online demonstrations and classes coming up. We have the amazing Brooke Taylor. She is going to be demonstrating on the 18th. We have Mitchie Cran. She's going to be demonstrating on the 21st. I will share both of these to my page, but they're going to be going live from the Simi Cakes and Confections page. So that's going to be on there. And then we also have my Airbrushing Basics class. That is going to be on the 19th of September. That one was kind of bundled because you get the class free. You can get it individually and use what you have, but you also do get the class free if you purchase a Dinky Doodle airbrush from our site. So if you came to CookieCon and you got one in person, make sure if you want to be on the list for that. It's also a pre-recorded class, so if you can't come to the live one, we do have it available on my website right now. That one's going to be September 19th at 12 p.m. And then we also have the Ultimate Sugar Show coming up at the end of this month, so if you're in the Atlanta area, make sure you come. There's going to be lots of vendors, hands-on demos, there's going to be classes, a whole bunch of fun stuff, so make sure that you come and visit us if you are in the Atlanta area. And let's see, I'm just going to check and see if there's any comments before I move on. How long do you wait until you use the glaze spray? I use the glaze spray right as soon as possible. I do like to paint and put things together before I glaze, because the glaze can cause a barrier between pieces to stick together, but you don't want to wait too long, so I wouldn't wait more than like 30 minutes to an hour, if possible, to put things together. So sometimes I put things together in sessions, but it depends on your humidity level when you need to glaze things. It'll kind of just take some experimenting. And then after glazing, do you just leave it out at room temperature or put it in a shadow? Yeah, try and keep it away from, outside lights or anything like that, like the sun. But you can just, I leave a lot of my pieces out at room temperature. This is the tree that me and Nicholas Lodge did back in April. So you can see he's still fine. I have a couple other pieces here. The only thing that's been glazed with the non-edible lacquer is Frank here, and he's still shiny because I put a non-edible lacquer on him. But pieces, as long as you keep them, they could get a little dusty, so if you want to put it in a shadow box, that would be the only reason, but I just leave my pieces out, or you can keep them in an airtight container if you want to keep it longer. Awesome. Okay, cool. And then we have my next, so like I said, the September the Zoom class is going to be the Airbrushing Basics, but we have October as a pre-order, since like I said, the September was kind of sort of like a bundle too. So I wanted to come up with the October project too, since we are getting all the way into almost into Halloween already. So that is going to be on October 24th. It's going to be Steampunk Stan. He is all chocolate and Isomalt, so the eyes are Isomalt, some of the gears and things are Isomalt, but the rest is going to be poured and modeling chocolate. So that is going to be a Zoom class. So that one you do have to sign up to secure your seat on my website. It's going to be the 24th. We do have an accessory kit for that as well, or you can come and just get the class and use what you have, but I'm so excited for that because it is interactive. If you can't make it to the Zoom class, we also do a pre-recorded version as well, but I have him here to show you guys because I wanted to see. Ta-da! So this is what we're going to be making. Everyone will make one of these in the class, and I'll turn him a little bit so you can see.
That's just
super, isn't he awesome? I love him. He just looked like a stand to me. So we have our Isomalt clock eyes and our little grate eye there. And so yeah, everybody's going to be making one of these, but you can choose kind of which positioning for all the decorations and the colors that you do. I'm super excited. Like I said, it's a Zoom class, so we work alongside each other. And that one is going to be, I believe, did I say the 24th? The Sunday. All right, so I'm really excited. That is available on my website right now. So if you want to sign up, make sure you secure your seat. It is a pre-order though, so they're not going to be going out until October 1st if you get the accessory kit. So make sure if you get other things with the accessory kit from our site that you let us know in the order comments or send me a message right away to make sure that it's okay that it's, if you need things shipped separately, if you need them more right away, since he won't ship till around October 1st. All right, and then, yay, I'm glad you guys like it. It's going to be really, really fun. We did our dragon class, which the replay is still up, the pre-recorded tutorial, that was last month, and I'm really excited for this guy because it's going to be a lot more sculpting, but we're using chocolate this time, which will be fun. Let's see, somebody asked, will I ever do Frankenstein again? Maybe. He's a little bit more intense, so it'd probably be more of an in-person class, but he is all hand-sculpted Isomalt. But maybe one day for Halloween we'll be able to do something similar to him at least. All right, so on to our really, really big, exciting announcement. I have not posted this anywhere before, so you guys are hearing it first. We are going to be having a day of live stream demos. It's all going to be free, and it's all going to be Simi themed. I'm going to pop it up on the screen now so you can see our incredible demonstrators. But on October 17th, we are having the Simi Sweet Scare-a-thon. So that is going to be a free day of live demos. They're all going to be back-to-back in a whole day of fun sugar Simi related stuff. So it may be using the color splash, it might be Isomalt, it might be combination, it might be using molds, but we have these incredible artists coming to demo or live streaming to demo. We have Emily Grandy, we have Kim Simons, and we have Jackie Kelly, as well as Chef Nicholas Lodge, who you guys know I work a lot with. So those are all going to be announced. This is kind of like the save the date, so just so you guys can kind of see the date and everything and make sure that you're ready. But we're going to have the full schedule of the timing and the individual projects of what each artist is going to be making coming out on October 1st. So check out that, but I wanted to tell you guys because I'm so excited about it. Emily is based in Utah. We have Kim from New York. We have Jackie, who is in the UK, and then we have Chef Nicholas Lodge, who is in Atlanta. And then I'll be doing a demonstration as well. My demonstration is going to be actually a two-part back-to-back demonstration with Chef Nicholas. And I wanted to show you guys mine just as a little teaser, but like I said, the full list of everybody's projects is going to be coming out on October 1st. But my project is going to be this huge spider cookie. We're going to be doing the blown body and hand sculpted body, the window cookie, impressioning the fondant and painting it, as well as making these super fun lollipops that are going to be almost like a 2D, 3D effect. I have them to show you guys because there are etchings inset in the lollipops, and so those are all going to be my live stream. And then we're going to have Chef Nicholas is going to be adding on to this with his beautiful flowers and foliage, and we're going to put together one big Halloween showpiece. So I'm really excited. We're still working on the designs and everything, but I'll definitely post about that on October 1st and show how we're going to collaborate. And then the other incredible artists' projects are going to be announced on October the 1st. So it's a day of free live demos. It'll be broadcasted on the Simi Cakes and Confections page, so just make sure you like that page to watch them. I'll show you my cookie too because I do have it here. If you were at CookieCon, you did see it, but I have a big one. So it's a window cookie like I was talking about earlier with the transfer sheets, and then we have the blown spider on top. But if you didn't want to do the blown spider, you could just use the design itself because it does have the spider on there. And then we also have the lollipops here that are super duper fun. All right, let's see if I can tilt these the right way. And so you can see the designs in them are actually inset. You see how they're flat? and then it has the designs inset and painted there. So we're going to be doing tons of fun stuff. My accessory kit for this project is up on my website now, so if you want to follow along to the live, you are more than welcome to. I'll have the supply list and everything on there. But I'm super excited. Oh, I can't wait. I'm so glad you guys are excited too. Awesome. So yeah, save the date, October 17th. We are going to have all of the demonstrations back to back, so it will be a fun, Simi, sweet day. Yay! Oh, awesome, guys. All right, did anybody have any other questions or anything like that?
Oh, wait, there might have been one.
Okay, I'll just make sure if you guys have any final questions, let me know. I'm so excited about the Scare-a-thon. I think it's going to be awesome. I love Halloween, so it's definitely going to be a very spooky day. All right, looks like it is all good. So again, if you're watching the replay or you guys think of any questions later, feel free to send me a message, and I will see you guys in the next live demo, which is going to be the Scare-a-thon. So that's next month's super fun Scare-a-thon. It's also going to be because in the Torch team, we usually do a game night every month, but we're going to be doing giveaways during the Scare-a-thon for tons of fun prizes. So we're kind of combining that all into our Playdate, our game night, our day of live streams. It's just going to be such a fun event. So I hope to see you guys there. Again, if you have any questions, let me know, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Keep life sweet. Bye, guys.